I think the Cinewhoop looks good. I'll get the Cinewhoop. I'm stuffed. Cinewhoops are getting larger and larger. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. This is the Catalyst MachineWorks WhoopMaster, and it continues the ongoing trend that we've seen of stretching the definition of what a Cinewhoop is. Suffice it to say that the days when a Cinewhoop was in any way related to a tiny whoop are long gone. Okay, I was wrong. It's a Cinewhoop. It's a Cinewhoop after all. I see now. Yeah, it's got 4-inch props and it's big, but anything that sucks itself into the wall like that, 100% a Cinewhoop. I take it all back. And that's okay, because what we have asked Cinewhoops to do has continued to expand. Originally, a Cinewhoop was basically the smallest thing you could get to carry a GoPro and still get reasonable performance. The defining characteristics were prop guards so that it was safe to use indoors and specifically around talent, actors, or around stuff you didn't want to get damaged, like expensive cars and so forth. Prop guards and small enough to get into small places. But that definition of small enough to get into small places has kind of gone out the window. And part of the driving characteristic for that has been that we are carrying heavier and heavier cameras. The GoPro Hero 8, 9, and 10 are heavier than the 6 and 7 that came before them. And I guess people have realized that there's still a benefit to having a larger quadcopter with more performance, longer flight time, and easier to carry that additional weight, while still having the protected props and so forth that make a Cinewhoop desirable. So, although this technically is named the WhoopMaster, obviously it's not going to do the exact same kinds of tasks that like a 3-inch, a 3.5-inch, or a 2.5-inch Cinewhoop would do. Different tools for different jobs. But Catalyst MachineWorks has put a ton of innovation into this, like they always do. And I think what we should do in this video is try to figure out what this is going to be best at. The WhoopMaster uses 4-inch props, and you can see that Catalyst MachineWorks has sent this with 6-blade props. This is a trend that we've seen in Cinewhoops where they're going to more blades, which gives a little bit better thrust, but also a little bit quieter performance. It tends to bring the noise level down and makes it a little bit nicer for actors and other people on set. The motors are in a pusher configuration, which puts the props facing down, and that gives a little bit more efficiency because there is less obstruction for the high pressure air coming off the prop. The motors are 2206.5 and 2420 kV. And it may be a little bit surprising to see a 2206 motor, 2206.5 motor being used for a 4-inch prop. Normally you would say that's a bigger motor than is really required for a 4-inch prop. But most quadcopters running a 4-inch prop are much smaller and much lighter than this, and obviously this thing is a workhorse. Now I just had to double check that I had my information right, because the batteries that Catalyst MachineWorks recommends for this are 1500-ish milliamp hour 6S, and pairing a 6S battery with a 2420 kV motor is a little bit unusual. That's a much higher kV than you would typically pair with a 6S battery. I guess the thinking is these are only 4-inch props, so the smaller the prop, the faster you have to spin it, the higher the kV motor you want. But the difference between a 5-inch and a 4-inch prop is not that much, and I'm really intrigued to see how this is going to fly. It seems like the motors are really going to be screaming. The WhoopMaster continues the trend in Cinewhoops of using prop guards instead of ducts. Original Cinewhoops used ducts, which gave about a 10 to 15% increase in efficiency when the ducts were designed correctly. But the truth is that the ducts usually were not designed correctly and usually did not provide that improvement in efficiency. And the trade-off is that ducts really compromise handling. So by going to prop guards, you still have the safety for flying next to stuff that you don't want to damage, but you get much better handling and a little bit less weight. We're going to be testing the effectiveness of these prop guards by crashing this thing into something delicate later in the video.
Now, I recently did a build video for this, the newbie drone Cinema, and I complained a little bit during that video about how freaking fiddly these carbon fiber Cinewhoop frames are. There's just so many pieces that go together. It's so fiddly to get all the stuff in there, and then once you've built it, if you have to work on it, it's a pain in the butt to take it apart. And that criticism probably should be leveled against the Catalyst MachineWorks Whoopmaster. Catalyst MachineWorks always makes really complicated fiddly frames. Look at all the screws and carbon fiber parts, and the good news is that Catalyst MachineWorks sent me a pre-built one, so I didn't have to go through all this nonsense, and I want to acknowledge that if I had, I would be whining so much about what a hassle it was. The hope is that with a Cinewhoop, you aren't going to crash it as often as like a freestyle or a racing drone, and the hope is that therefore maintenance will be minimal. But yikes, just buy a pre-built one from Catalyst, because look at it. So many parts.
Now it's time to give this guy a test flight, and I have got not just one, but 2 GoPros on it, and a big honkin' 1500 milliamp hour 6S. This is an amount of cargo that a 3.5 inch just could not perform with. Let's see how this 4-inch Cinewhoop does. The first thing I want to know is what throttle position does it take off at? Oh, whoa. That feels like about 25–30%, which, considering how much weight it's carrying, is pretty gosh darn impressive for a quote-unquote Cinewhoop. We're doing cinematic stuff, so we're not going to do any flippy flops. We're going to try and do smooth, cinematic moves. So cinematic. My house is very cinematic, as you probably know. Considering I've got a Hero 10 on here and a Bones, and this is an expensive gosh darn quad, let's try not to lose this in the trees or any dumb shit like that. The DJI is holding in real good, 40–50 megabits per second. I don't know if I want to drop down behind these trees here. Oh yeah, a little breakup. We're alright. Still just hanging in there at 3.6 volts on the battery, so I think we're in pretty good shape. 3.5 volts now. Haven't been flying for very long. 3 minutes, 29 seconds. Oh, I gotta turn my head. Right, hang on. Yeesh. Come back. Oh, battery's really done. Oh, I've killed the battery. Wow. Okay, the battery really was dead. That's sad. These are brand new batteries. Oh. Okay, cool. Just killed a freaking brand new, whatever, $40 battery on the first flight because I was so busy flying. I wasn't paying attention. Well, now you know how much flight time you can expect to get. Looks like about 4 minutes. This battery's on the smaller side of what Catalyst MachineWorks recommended that I get for use with this quad, and that's consistent with my experience flying it. It took off at a throttle position of, well, I wasn't looking down, but it felt like about 30–35% throttle at most, and that's consistent with like a relatively lightweight freestyle or racing quad. That means that we've got a little bit more room to put a little bit more weight on here, and so we could go up to maybe an 1800 or something and get a little more flight time. But on top of that, I think we were seeing a lot of sag. We were down at 3.6 volts relatively early in the flight, and I think these motors are working real hard. Now this is a 100C battery, which is the minimum that Catalyst recommends, and it's a CNHL, which is not bad, but if you were really serious about getting the absolute most out of this, you might go with more of a high performance, like truly high C rated, expensive battery. I was trying to save a little money by buying the CNHLs because I don't fly this thing every day. Let's try a little more aggressive flying and see how it handles the weight. Ooh, she can get up there in speed. Let's see how it handles prop wash oscillation. Right into the pool. You can hear the motors speed up there. You can hear the motors struggle there a little. And they sort of speed up on their own as the result of the prop wash oscillation, which but it's actually doing really good. Had to bail out there. Sort of, it didn't carry its weight like I expected it to. I mean, it's heavy as heck compared to its thrust, so it's not handling like a racing drone. 20 volts there, just sagging the battery like crazy. But what are we at? A minute, 30 seconds. We're down around 3.7 volts. Oh, it's loud. Well, how loud is it? Let's science that. Using the internationally recognized standard of 7 tippy-toe to heel paces, we're going to hover this guy, and then we're going to measure how much noise it makes. Now we're going to compare it to the GEPRC Cinelog 3.5, and I know that the Cinelog 3.5 is not in the same class as the Whoopmaster. It could never carry 2 GoPros at once. But if we use this as a benchmark for, like, what does a largish, loudish Cinewhoop sound like on set, then we can get a sort of standard for how the Whoopmaster compares. I gotta say, this is the most confident I've felt flying anything labeled as a Cinewhoop. Even the 3.5-inch Cinewhoops like the Cinelog 3.5 from GEPRC, which are pretty good at carrying a big heavy camera like the GoPro Hero 10, you still don't have quite this much agility, and they certainly don't have this kind of handling. The way it managed to do that split S without kind of going and just getting all out of sorts, really impressive. I'm sure if we started doing really snappy flippy flops, we would find the edge of this thing's performance, but that's not what you want out of a Cine style drone anyway. I think Catalyst MachineWorks is onto something here. But what about durability? What about the ability to hit things without damaging them? How are we going to test that? It's really loud as heck. It's really terrifyingly loud. Maybe I won't smash it into myself as a test. Okay, I was wrong. It's a Cinewhoop. It's a Cinewhoop after all. I see now. Yeah, it's got 4-inch props and it's big, but anything that sucks itself into the wall like that, 100% a Cinewhoop. I take it all back. Legit.
Now, I'll bet you're wondering what the heck this metal piece is here on the bottom. It sure looks like a heat sink, doesn't it? And in fact, it is a heat sink. It's a heat sink for the DJI video transmitter that is inside the frame. And the reason it's got a heat sink is that it is fully enclosed in this TPU enclosure. Yeah, Catalyst MachineWorks have tried to make this thing waterproof. Now, they are very careful to tell me not to advertise it as being waterproof. Don't submerge it, but they did a test where they submerged it and it worked. You can see they've even sealed it up. There's little, I guess this might be glue or some other kind of silicone adhesive. Come in here, they've sealed where it meets the top plate, and basically if you have to fly this thing in a little bit of rain or weather, you're gonna be fine. But there's no airflow getting to the video transmitter, so they were just like, fine, yeah, we'll just stick a little heatsink on here, it'll all be good. Here's another thoughtful touch that Catalyst has covered that other manufacturers might have overlooked. We've got these protective covers here for the carbon fiber pieces and the motors, just another thing that might hit an object. Obviously there are still uncovered parts, like you can't just surround the whole thing in plastic, but they've thought to do that. And in addition, they've got screw protectors here so that when you land, these screws aren't gouging up whatever you land on. This USB extension is another thoughtful touch. The actual flight controller is sealed up inside the weatherproof enclosure. So how do you plug in to configure your flight controller? Well, they've put an extended USB wire. I'm not sure if I can easily show you all the wiring, but basically you've got a USB port out there that you can still get to. I guess that might get a little bit of weather in it. Maybe you'd want to get like a little silicone plug or a rubber plug for it. Now that we've flight tested the video, the next thing we got to do is ask Catalyst MachineWorks, what the heck were you even thinking when you designed this thing? And compare it to some other quads that are out there in the world to see which is better and which is worse. But before we do that, I want to take a second and do a plug for me. If you enjoy my content, if you find my content useful, and if you want to make sure I can keep making content like this, please consider joining my Patreon. Patreon is a website where you can subscribe to me for as little as $2 a month, or more if you feel like I've earned it. The amount is totally up to you. There's a link in the video description, and you can sign up there. If today's the day that I earned your support, fantastic. I'd love to have you. And if I haven't earned it yet, you keep watching the content, I'll keep making the content. Maybe that day will come. I have to own up to something dumb I did during the flight testing, because the only thing more embarrassing than doing something dumb is not noticing that you've done something dumb and then having people in the comment section call you out on it for years to come. When I mounted the rearward facing camera, I mounted it hanging down below the quad. And I've seen other frames designed to mount the camera that way, and it was in my head that when you mount a rear-facing camera, that's how you do it. But the problem is that then when you land, you're scuffing. I don't know, you probably can't see this, but you're scuffing up the camera. And I said to Catalyst MachineWorks, maybe you guys could come up with some kind of a kickstand to prevent that. And then I realized you can just mount the camera facing up, and then it doesn't scrub on the ground. So I'm dumb, but at least I'm smart enough to know I was dumb. After I finished flying the Whoopmaster, I found myself a little uncertain as to what it was intended to be the best at. So I thought it was only fair to ask Catalyst MachineWorks what their design intent was for this quad. Neil said that his goal for the Whoopmaster was to create a Cinewhoop that could carry 2 GoPros at once, or that could carry 1 GoPro with a much bigger battery so you get much longer flight times. And that's kind of a big deal when you're on set. A lot of directors and directors of photographies get really confused when FPV pilots are on set and can only get like 3 minutes of flight before they have to land and redo their battery. And in that sense, I think he has mostly succeeded. But I think we have to compare the Whoopmaster to other tools that do similar jobs and kind of refine the slice of things that the Whoopmaster is gonna be the best at. So we'll start by comparing the Whoopmaster with this. This is a GEP-RC Cinelog 2.5. It's a 2.5-inch Cinewhoop, and it's gonna be great at flying indoors. It's gonna be relatively quiet, and it's gonna be non-threatening and comfortable for actors to be around. But this little guy isn't gonna intimidate anybody, and if it does smack into you, it's not gonna hurt anything. Big downside though, it can't carry a full-size GoPro, at least not with any authority. So if we assume the mission profile involves carrying a full-size GoPro, we end up with something like this. This is the GEP-RC Cinelog 3.5. It has 3.5-inch props. And there's also a 3-inch version if you need something just a smidge smaller that can carry a full-size GoPro. But especially with the heavier GoPro Hero 10, the 3.5 is really the sweet spot. And it is significantly bigger than the 2.5. But it can still fly indoors, and it's still not too terrifying when flying around talent. Well, all right, you say, but I want something even bigger because I need to carry 2 GoPros or a big battery. Should you just go straight to the Whoopmaster? Why wouldn't you go with a regular 5-inch or even a 6-inch mini quad? You see, that's what I think makes the Whoopmaster's use case a little bit challenging, because for many of the things you would want the Whoopmaster's size and power for, you could just get better performance out of even bigger props. But what do you lose? You lose the prop guards, and you lose the ability to fly around the talent or around without damaging the walls of the house or damaging the paint job on the car, etc. But I'm not sure you're getting that with the Whoopmaster, because the Whoopmaster is big and powerful and loud enough that even as somebody who has a lot of comfort around quadcopters, I didn't enjoy it flying close to me. And that was especially so after I saw how it reacted. I was gonna hit myself in the back or hit myself in the butt, or then maybe I was gonna do a funny joke where I smacked myself right in the crotch with it. And then I thought maybe I'll tap the wall a little bit first. And when I saw it go and flip out, I kind of didn't feel like doing that anymore. So I'm not sure I would feel super comfortable flying this close to people or close to stuff that I was a little bit worried about damaging. And yes, it's true. The props are fully enclosed, and yes, it's true. It probably wouldn't hurt me as long as I have short hair and not long hair that's getting sucked into the props or whatever. Guess that's just as true for a 3.5-inch, but this thing just seems to cross the line where it's no longer just a cute little Cinewhoop. It's a big, powerful, kind of scary thing. And at that point, what are the prop guards really getting you? Not nothing. Neil Whiteley told me about times when he's been flying through the woods, flying through dense woods, and he hits a branch, and with a 5-inch or a 6-inch, he might have gone down. But with the prop guards, he was able to stay in the air. But I think the way to think of this is more like a large quad with prop guards than like a Cinewhoop per se. Oh, and don't forget, this thing can be made waterproof. Well, weatherproof. And Neil points out that that's especially important for professionals, where if it's a little bit sprinkling and you say to the director, sorry, sir, sorry, Michael Bay, I can't get the shot today because the weather's not any good, that the ability to do that is kind of a big deal, and that's something they're focusing on for professionals. And ultimately, I think that's what we've got here. We've got a very specialized tool for professionals or enthusiastic amateurs, people who need more speed and power and weight capacity than like a 3.5-inch Cinewhoop can get them, but who for some reason don't want to commit to an open propped 5-inch, which could deliver better performance. And if that's what you're looking for, then the Thrustmaster is a really freaking cool product. But I think a lot of people are going to be better served by something either smaller or bigger. It's kind of in this weird middle category that in my opinion, limits its application but in some way, isn't that true for all sort of pro-grade stuff? Like, a lot of pro-grade stuff is very focused and specialized, and that's what Catalyst Machine Works is clearly going for here. If you're interested in picking this up, there's a link in the video description. And Catalyst Machine Works makes a lot of really cool quadcopters if you're into cinematic stuff, heavy lift, or just really rip, snorting, powerful quads that blow your doors off. They make all of them. The other thing I want to point out is you might be wondering, the GEPRC Cinelog 3.5, like, how would it really stack up? Like, could it do what I need, or do I need something bigger like the Thrustmaster? I've got a review of the GEPRC Cinelog 3.5. It is on a card on screen right here, and you can go ahead and check that out. The Cinelog 3.5 also sort of stretches the definition of what a Cinewhoop is, but nowhere near as much as this Thrustmaster here. I'll see you there.